I got to create e-learning on hard technical skills and soft skills. Had to work, go out into the business and find stakeholders and manage those relationships. And so, especially growing the team, I think, it was really, they were vicious about headcount at SpaceX. Which I think is a great, innovation comes through constraints. And you have to put constraints on whether it's the people you have, the resources you have, the money, the time. If you don't put constraints on those things, then you're not going to get innovation. And I think constraining headcount is a really important thing for growing businesses, because you have to have a check to make sure, no, this is really absolutely essential. And so just again and again, it was having to come back to, this is the business case. This is the business case.
Matt, what an absolute honor to chat with you today. I have been really looking forward to this. So thank you for spending this next hour or so with me.
Oh, no, Candace, the honor is all mine. I'm really excited for this conversation. I honestly, especially in the last month or so, I've been thinking a lot about my career journeys in general. And just how do we create a world where fewer people are so excited that it's Friday and so sad when it's Monday? How do we just I personally have had, and we'll talk about this, but I personally have had the extreme luck to have multiple roles and careers where it was the opposite for me. Honestly, in most of the places I've worked, Friday comes along and I'm kind of just, I'm excited. Don't get me wrong, I'm excited for the weekend, but I've always been really passionate about what I've gotten to do. So I love that you're creating a space and having conversations to encourage and help people have more of that.
Yes. You are speaking my language, honestly. There's only apparently 15% of people who love what they do. And I feel the same. I'm like, that needs to be like 98%. So anyway, we can get into that. So, all right, for those who haven't met you, tell us just a brief intro as to where you are today.
Yeah, so my name is Matt Gjertsen, and I'm the founder of a company called Better Everyday Studios. And what we do is focus on leadership development for new and frontline leaders, especially at technology companies. So, and I think of more, though it's somewhat, what you think of when you think of technology, I often think of hardware technology as well. So manufacturing, aerospace, that kind of stuff. And we focus on building courses and programs to help those folks.
Nice. So highly educated people that now are also people leaders. Yes. Okay.
Exactly. Making that the tagline I like to use is, we turn your great engineers into great managers.
Oh, love it. Yes. So needed. All right. Matt, my favorite part of the podcast, we're going to travel back in time to young you. What was that first job? You sort of earned money. Maybe you felt a little bit the first taste of independence.
My first job growing up was yard work in all kinds of various forms. So I had to do a lot of pro bono work at home for my dad and parents.
Pro bono work.
But then I would
tell my son that.
Yeah, exactly. But then I would, also do that a lot for neighbors. So this was, spread. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. So this was moving, chop down trees, cutting wood, spreading beauty bark, weeding, all that kind of stuff. Spent lots and lots of weekends doing that.
Okay. And how old were you when you started doing that?
Probably middle school. I'm not, I honestly don't remember exactly, but I'm sure I was doing it by middle school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm always so surprised at how young people start working. I started when I was 14, and it's just, I thought I was like the youngest person in the world.
Yeah.
That is not the case. Most of my guests start round about then, actually.
And it's really funny, actually. We were just watching the movie Rudy, the old movie Rudy, about the football player, and because I have a 10-year-old daughter, and so we're having her watch it for the first time. And in the opening scene, so this is probably the opening scene's probably occurring in the 1950s, and it's all these kids playing football. They all look like they're about 13, 14, and they break up the football game because one of them was like, "Sorry guys, I got to go to work." And this kid goes walking off. They're like, "Whoa."
It was happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. All right, so I'm gonna write that down to watch that movie with my son who turns 10 this year.
Oh yeah.
All right, so yard work, and you did that like sort of middle school.
Yeah.
I'm always curious about what did that teach you? Those early years. Do you remember some lessons learned? Did it shape anything in you?
I think probably one of the biggest things that I took away from it is because all of that work was what we would, I mean, I didn't have words for this then, but when I think back to it, was project based work. It was like, here's a bunch of stuff that needs to happen. We'll pay you $50 for it or something. And I think it really showed, and what that does, the nice thing about that is like, oh, okay, I can spend all day doing this and get $50, or maybe I can just be like, go and like really put the pedal down, get it done, and then I get $50 and have the rest of the day. And so I think it really helped me help build that ability to really focus in and do however much work it took to get. I'm very much I would rather, like run a mile than run for 10 minutes kind of person, and so just have it started that mindset of I like to have an endpoint in mind that I can just figure out however much I want to work in order to get it done as quickly as I can.
Hmm. That is very cool. I haven't thought of it like that before. Yeah.
I think, yeah, because another job that I had early, I know you're going to go here too, but like another job I had was as a busboy in a
Mhm.
restaurant.
Yeah.
That
Let's
started
go
when
there
I was
now.
in
Yeah.
yeah that started when I was in high school, and that was hourly work, right? And I actually think it's really important for people to do both of those forms of work, because one is the hourly work is can be nice because just like I do the job, I get the money, I put in more time, I get more money. It's like really easy. But then I also think it's really helpful to see that other side of work as well, where it's like, okay, here's this body of work that has to get done, and it's up to me, and this can take as long or as short as I want it to. I think it's important to have like both of those experiences. It is ironic that so many people are salaried, which fits in between those two, which um, is interesting. It has its own mindsets to it, but I actually think it's really important to have both of those experiences to kind of shape how you think about working and how you best work.
Hmm. Oh my gosh, that it just makes so much sense. It's so simple, but I just haven't thought about it. I suppose a lot of my work was hourly when, I
Yeah.
was little and, before studying. So yeah, that's very good. I feel like I need to write a book to my kids on all of these little nuggets to
Yeah.
say, like,
Yeah.
do this,
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So teaching you about hourly versus project based, any people, because you said busboy, right? So now you customer
Yep.
facing, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
how was that like dealing with people, such a young age, all of that, stuff that
I,
goes along with it?
there's so many things that you learn from service work, right? I think that's another thing. Just like everybody needs to have a service job at some point, because yeah, you learn. I have a very clear memory of a night where the restaurant was just super packed. Everybody was really busy. And so I was kind of stepping in for there was one particular table where I ended up doing most of the server duties just because he was super busy elsewhere. And the table, the woman at the table, at the end, when as they were leaving, like she came and found me and gave me the tip, because she was recognizing that like I had been the one to do the work. And that just, I was like, oh, like when you really go the extra mile, or when you're providing somebody good service, they really recognize it. And so that was a really impactful experience. And then I also have another experience I'll never forget. There was a night where we were at an airport. The restaurant was at an airport, and there was this huge event out on the tarmac where it was like, I forget if it was a wedding party or something, but they have like a tent up, and there's just all kinds of people, and a bunch of us were all working it together, and it was really, really hard. We were doing lots of work to give them really great service, because we didn't normally do these kinds of events, so it was a very different thing. And it was a huge event. So the bill's in the thousands and thousands of dollars, and all of us, the servers, are like really excited, like, oh, this is going to be a fantastic tip, or this is going to be really great. And the GM, who, people had various feelings for, he goes out there and is just like, oh no, don't even worry about it. Like, this was all our pleasure. Like, and he basically waves away the tip, and we're all just like crushed by what he did. And, so that's another kind of, core memory of just like, oh, like, you really need to think about the effects that is going to have on when you're the leader of a team. Like, you might think this is great for one reason, but that's going to have effects on your team for other things. So those were both very formative experiences from working there.
Oh no. Yeah, that must have been so hard, because he's also being nice to the client, and maybe the client
he's thinking long term. Totally.
But,
yeah.
And now you have a whole bunch of demotivated people, right?
Yes.
That were looking forward to this little bit of side money. So,
yes. Exactly.
Yeah, okay. And I think as leaders, you don't think about that, and I wonder if even he had the conversation with you all, like, I'll give you a little bit more, but we're not going to have a tip. I just wonder how that would have gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big follower of Gary Vaynerchuk on social media, who, he's a big media personality in New York, and he talks a lot. And one of the questions that he commonly gets asked from founders is, how do I get the people in my company to be as passionate as I am? How do I get them to work as hard as I do? And he always just says, give them the same upside that you have. Right? Like, if your business succeeds, it's your business. And so whatever you're trying to do, if you're trying to increase revenue or get some multiple so that you can sell the company or whatever, that's great for you. In most of these businesses, they're not going to see any of that. And so, to translate that to this, my experience, this GM is thinking, he's thinking longer term. He's thinking what it might do for his salary if he can bring more of these events to come in, because he's growing the total revenue of the restaurant. That doesn't impact me at all as a busboy. And so, it's thinking through those things of what benefit do you get? What benefit do they get? How do you communicate it, as you said, so that people understand the long-term vision, if there is one? All really essential.
Yes. And I also listen to Gary Vee a lot. He tells it like it is, and I love him. And I've also heard him say, they're not. So how do you get people to care about your business or whatever? And I've heard him say, they're not.
They won't.
They just don't. So very good point there. Okay, so after that, and you said that was during high school, right?
High school, yeah.
Okay. Leave high school. What happens immediately afterwards? What did you do?
So I went to the Air Force Academy for college. And so it was my high school graduated really late. We finished, the school district just finished school in like late June. And so I had like 4 days between graduation and going to boot camp. So I was at the airport while friends of mine were on their senior trips to Mexico, while I'm going to Colorado to go get yelled at for the next like 6 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it was. So boot camp, Air Force Academy, that was the next 4 years of my life.
Okay. Tell me about that. I mean, that is just an experience that not many people have. So I want to dig into that, because I personally am very curious. Yeah.
It's funny because I'm on the verge now of going to my 20-year reunion from the academy. And so there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, it was, it's interesting, from like the career work perspective. The nice thing is that when you go to a service academy, you're kind of getting paid while you're there. So you don't have to worry about getting a side job or any of that stuff. It's, it's all paid for. The quote unquote salary that you're getting starts super small, and then it kind of grows as you're there. Like a lot of things pressure related, I think pressure exposes more of who you are a lot of times. And so I think a lot of that is what happens. It helps clarify who you are and what you want. So I went there because I wanted to be a pilot. And so you start off where your first summer there, you are going through boot camp. And so it's exactly what you think boot camp is. You're getting yelled at, you're cleaning your room, attention to detail, all that stuff. And that actually carries through your entire freshman year, where for your whole freshman year, you're going to school. And when you're in the academic building, it's kind of just all things normal. You're just like in school. But the moment you step out of the academic building as a freshman, it's like you're at attention. You're saying, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. You're running in certain places. You have many more, constrictions to what you can do and how you can act. And then the last 3 years, you're much more of a kind of normal student where you're not doing all that stuff. But then though you don't have side jobs, everybody has a job at the academy for various each year or each semester. Actually, you have different positions. So whether it's in the squadron or the group or the wing, you'll hold different titles with different responsibilities.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah, because I literally have no idea about this world.
Yeah.
So why did you choose that? Was it a path to become a pilot?
Yep.
That's
yep.
The main. Okay.
Exactly. I wanted to fly the space shuttle. I've always been a space nut. And so I said, okay, if I want to fly the space shuttle, I got to be a pilot. If I want to be a pilot, easiest way to do that is in the military. Easiest way to become a pilot in the military is to go to the Air Force Academy. And so that was kind of the route that went.
Okay. How did you qualify to get in?
It's interesting. It's actually that's probably one of the really rigorous things, because when you're applying to a service academy, it's like multiple college applications are happening at once, because you have to start by applying. You have to be nominated, and there's various ways to be nominated, but mainly it's through a congressional member. And so you're applying to your congressional members to say, please nominate me. And that application process is just as rigorous as any college application process. And so the nice thing for me, I was always very much a procrastinator growing up, still kind of am. But because of the multiple processes, it was like pretty early in my junior year of high school. I'm already starting the applications and going through that whole process. So that involves the application and interviews and everything. And then and then you do the same thing for the Air Force Academy. And the added thing that you don't have at a lot of places is then there's also like a physical component. So there's like a physical test that you have to pass. So that's kind of it's applying to college, but just times 3 or 4.
Yes. Okay. And that's what I was imagining. I was like, I'm sure it must have been really rigorous to get in the first place. And then when you are in, the rigor doesn't stop. It just keeps going. So, and I love that pressure. You said it earlier, like how the pressure can just show you who you are very quickly, right? Like if you're going to crack, if do you become very structured? Do you, whatever it is. So what did it reveal about you that maybe you didn't know, or you didn't know, and I'm thinking like, maybe you thought you didn't know you had it in you or something like that.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is I realized that I'm really good at expectations. Being there was exactly what I expected somehow. Like a lot of people, they go to boot camp and like, oh my gosh, this is so much. It was exactly what I expected somehow. That doesn't mean it was easy or hard. Like it was what it was. And it was hard and emotional. I don't know if I realized it then, but looking back on it of how I did there versus how I've done at different phases in my life and why I run my own company now is I think actually I do really well in structure that I impose. I don't do as well in structure that others impose. And so, if you say you have to be here at this time and here at this time, and there's space in between, then very often I'm gonna not do anything in that space. Like if you're putting controls on me, then I'm gonna leave it to my own devices or something like that, rather than find good time to fill that space. Whereas if there's no expectations, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to fill every second of the day. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And so I think that's something that I've learned in retrospect of how structured I can be now versus how structured I was then, that I do better when I'm imposing the structure. And so I think that's ultimately what probably led me to starting my own business.
Yes. Okay. And that makes a lot of sense. I really resonate with that because I'm the same. Like I can go into a situation with no structure, but then I want to create the structure. But then if you give me a structure, I want to rebel to the last line that
Yeah,
I can push back
yeah,
on. Like just push
yeah,
the boundaries
exactly.
until it's gonna break.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
okay. So I really resonate with that. That makes sense to me.
The other thing I'll bring up about the academy is because probably the most pivotal thing that has happened in my life, or one of the more pivotal things at least from a professional perspective, is joining the debate team there. So I did speech and debate for the last 2 years of high school. Wasn't planning on doing it at the academy, but did it for some reason. And that was one of the it was the most formative professional experiences of my life. Is one, it gave me a great outlet from being at the academy. One of the top tournaments every year was in San Diego in February. So in February, Colorado is cold, and you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get out of here.
Yes.
And we'd go for 4 days to hang out on the beach in San Diego. So it gave me a great release. Taught me a lot about how to learn quickly, how to structure arguments, how to speak in front of people. But like my senior year, I was chosen to be on the Irish American debate team. So we're standing up in front of the entire national tournament. So a couple thousand people who are all other debaters, and I'm up there with a team that I've never met before, people that I knew but we'd never debated before, debating against these other people that I'd never met before. So it gave me really good experiences for everything that I do now, of learning things,
Yeah.
breaking arguments down to simplify them, and then public speaking.
Hmm. Yeah, and I wouldn't have even thought about that. But yes, and how to structure arguments, how to think in your brain and then structure your speech. Yeah, love
Yeah,
that. Thanks for
yeah,
sharing that. I think it's
yeah,
another thing I'm going to write in my book to my children. Go
yeah.
in the debate
It
team. Yes.
it's super. I can't recommend it enough because it's. And then, not to mention, I met my wife through that, so that was also helpful.
Well, there we go. Another reason.
Yeah,
Footnote.
yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, and when did you meet her? Were you debating against her? I can.
Yes, actually.
Okay, nice.
So yeah,
Who
and
won?
we
Her. Say
uh,
her.
neither of us remember.
Okay, probably best.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So you met her when you were debating against her, literally.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we just kept in touch over the years.
Okay, that's awesome. What a
Yeah,
story. That's a very cool
yeah,
story.
yeah.
Okay. So what happened after the academy? So 4 years intense, and then you were a pilot. You came out there,
No, no. So
or
then
no?
you kind of start. You leave the Air Force Academy with a job that you're going to do. So the intensity. So it's kind of like you're in competition to get into the academy, and then at the academy you're in competition to get whatever job you want, because they basically rack and stack the entire class of. By the time you graduate, there's about 1,000 of you, and then there's 1,000 jobs in the Air Force, and then they just go through it of just like, okay, first person, first pick, second, because like you fill out a whole sheet of like what are your picks of what you would want to go do. Luckily, when you go to the Air Force Academy, there's like pilot spots predominantly go to academy graduates, or a lot of them go per capita go to academy graduates. So it's your best chance. So I was on a path to go to become a pilot, but then you become what's called a casual lieutenant while you're awaiting your pilot training slot. Pilot training is another year-long process, and so you graduate 500 to-be pilots at once. They can't all just start pilot training at the same time, and so they spread them out over an entire year. And so I ended up going to South Carolina, where I'd never been, never knew anybody, and was what's called a casual lieutenant, where I'm just kind of hanging out doing odd jobs for a F-16 unit for a year. And then I went to Oklahoma after that for pilot training. And so I spent a year at Oklahoma doing pilot training. And then after that, I was a pilot.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
So wow, 6 years.
Basically, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then because then even at pilot training, it's the exact same thing. where at the end of pilot training, you get racked and stacked, and here's the jobs, and what plane are you going to go fly? And there's actually at the end, for every class at the end, there's a whole big party that you throw where there's like a big ceremony where each person comes up one at a time and they reveal like what plane they're going to go fly. There's all kinds of videos that you can see of it online. And some people are elated, and some people you can tell they're pretending to be excited because they really didn't want what they got. So yeah.
Where are you on that?
So it's interesting. So in pilot training, they for just about every class, they keep back one person to become what's called a first assignment instructor pilot, or FAPE, which means right after graduating pilot training, you become an instructor of pilot training at pilot training. And so they keep one person back from every class for that. They obviously want somebody good, but they can't give it to the first person because by regulation or whatever, the first person has to get their first pick of job. And so I was second in my class, and so I got FAPed. So I then spent the next 4 years in Oklahoma, which was actually, I was not excited about at all. It turned out to be the best thing that could have ever happened to my life for many reasons. But it was one of those reasons is that it is 100% what sent me on the path to what I do today. Because what that meant is that right after I finished pilot training, I went to San Antonio, Texas to go to instructor training. So first I learned how to fly the plane. Now I need to learn how to teach people to fly the plane. And so for 4 months, I was going through all this rigorous stuff, including what you go out on these flights where really experienced pilots play the student, right? And so they're in the plane messing up things, and you have to teach them in real time. And so it was like a really, really intense train the trainer program, right? Which was really, really great. And so because of that, and then I come back and then I spend the next 3 years teaching people, that's what really got me on this path of teaching and training other people.
Wow. Okay. That's fascinating. So you weren't excited to do that. That's not what you had in mind.
No.
So, okay. Yeah. Got it. All right. So, and then you did that for 4 months of intense train the trainer. That sounds like, wow. I wish most train the trainers could do that,
right.
But I think I would be terrified to be in the moment with the pilots messing up. I don't know if I'd find my words. So that must have been the whole thing. All right. And then what happened after that? I mean, I do want to come back, but I just want to kind of put your timeline together, and then we'll revisit things.
Yeah. So then I spent 3 years flying there, and then I went after you're a FAPE, you get assigned your major weapons system. So again, at the end of those 3 years, you're racked and stacked with all the other FAPEs, and you're assigned whatever, right? So that's a common theme, I suppose, in my early career. So then I went to fly the KC-10, which is this big refueling plane, which is right there in the camera behind me. And became an instructor pilot in the KC-10. So that was a lot of flying over in Afghanistan, flying across the Pacific Ocean, refueling lots of planes, did lots of cool things there. And then the Air Force was downsizing. So when you graduate pilot training, you have to spend 10 years as a pilot. I was not done with that 10 years yet. So I was expecting to go on and fly at another base for another several years, but they were downsizing. So they said, hey, you can raise your hand, and if you want to get out now, we'll waive your commitment. And I raised my hand. I didn't just get out. I transferred my commitment to the reserves. So I became a reservist. And that's also the point in time that I switched from flying into the space world. So I actually moved down to Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is a Space Force unit space unit. Space Force didn't exist then. And so I did that as the reserves. And then that was when I got my job at SpaceX. And then everything, my career really went down. When I left the military, I had no idea that I was going to become an instructor or training. And I didn't know any of that existed. But I started networking with the head of the launch site at Vandenberg. And he said, He's like, well, we need help training here. Have you ever done any training? Like, I've taught people how to fly planes. Yeah, I can do training. And so that got me that job. And then I did a good job there. And so a year after that, we were moving down to LA for me to become the manager of training and development for the whole company. So I was leading training and development for all of SpaceX, which was just crazy.
Yes, and we wanna know all about that crazy.
Yeah,
So,
it's really.
how big was the company at that point?
So when I took over the training and development team, it hadn't had a leader for several years when I joined, and so the team was 3 people, including me. The company was 7,500 people.
Phew.
And so, but that's not but training was now, I didn't even realize this then, but they have an unintentional federated training model where, and I think this is very, very common in companies where within HR, they just don't have a lot of headcount. They don't have a lot of resources. And so it's really hard for them to resource central learning and development. And so central learning and development becomes relatively under-resourced. Meanwhile, training is still a problem out in the company. And the production team, let's say HR has 50 headcount that they're trying to parse out. Well, production has 1,000 people in it. And so it's really easy for them to carve out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 headcount for training within production, right? And I think it's very common that just kind of proliferates around a company. I do think it's a great way to organize training, the federated model, but I think you should do it intentionally. And the challenge is if you do it unintentionally, because then there's no connective tissue between those various teams and people are stepping on one another and all that kind of stuff. But so my team was 3 people. Over the next 2+ years, we grew it to 10 people. And then as I was growing in my job, I was realizing all these connections to people out in launch, people in test, people in production, and that we're doing training all around the company to try to build those bridges.
Okay. I would say in my experience, most places are unintentional. You mentioned doing it intentionally. So yes, I and I've been in a corporate for 10 years, which had a very mature learning structure. So we had central, and then our people in the regions, we called them, would report into central learning and development. So we would, conduct quarterly, train the trainers, make sure they're on track. What are they doing? They would feed back to us. So I've seen the intentional side, and yes, totally agree with you that is an underrated model, actually.
Yeah. I think so. I think the norm in companies is to judge yourself as a manager by the number of people that you have reporting to you. And it just promotes this idea of empire building and growth. And I want a central learning and development team, and that's the way it should be. And it totally depends on the culture. And I think there's every reason to have trainers embedded out in the business. They're closer to the problem. They understand it better. They're directly aligned with their stakeholders and can be held accountable. But you just have to have clear lines of communication, accountability, and authority. So who's responsible in my world? Who's responsible for leadership development? Is it okay for the production team to develop their own leadership development program versus the central leadership development program? What makes it different? Is it tailored? Do they conflict? Having mechanisms to solve all those problems is really essential.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You got me thinking now. Like, I need to build out learning and development in one of my clients, and this is definitely, they're pretty small, but this is definitely a way to go. All right, but I want to talk more about leading this team, you growing it in a new company. I don't know how old SpaceX was when you joined, but it's a relatively very new company. So, I'd like to just understand like leadership dynamics and building the team and that sort of stuff. Like, tell us the stories of the people side of this.
Yeah. I'm really thankful that we started off as scrappy as we were, because it really built my skills, right, as a learning and development professional. I got to do basically everything that we do in L&D. I got to lead orientation. I got to facilitate soft skills. I got to create e-learning. I got to create e-learning on hard technical skills and soft skills. I had to work, go out into the business and find stakeholders and manage those relationships. And so, especially growing the team, I think, it was really, they were vicious about headcount at SpaceX. Which I think is a great, innovation comes through constraints. And you have to put constraints on whether it's the people you have, the resources you have, the money, the time. If you don't put constraints on those things, then you're not going to get innovation. And I think constraining headcount is a really important thing for growing businesses, because you have to have a check to make sure, no, this is really absolutely essential. And so just again and again, it was having to come back to, this is the business case. This is the business case. The first places we expanded were in environmental health and safety. We're paying trainers from Toyota to come in and train our staff on how to use a forklift or whatever. And we're paying them this much money per class, this much money per person. If alone we replace that with our own people, it pays for their salary. Plus, there's all these other externalities that we're going to get from this. So it's just building that business case again and again, depending on the stakeholder and what they care about. Which let's be honest, it's usually money. Usually comes back to that. And so I got just really good at doing that again and again, and I think it's a really important skill to figure out, what do the stakeholders care about? How do we build this business case so that we could grow? I'm just managing those relationships. I think that was the biggest thing. And then the other kind of critical thing that I would mention from a kind of team structure perspective is, one thing that I had to figure out very early on as we were growing is growing in two directions. Like, do you grow for today or do you grow for tomorrow? And in my particular case, what that means is, we have all these stakeholders, and, I had always envisioned getting to a point where you could have like an HR business partner, or like a learning business partner, where you have a few key consultants on the team that are paired with individual portions of the business, and then separate from that, having like an instructional design team. And, you have to decide, which do you do. So like the hiring for today was, we have all these courses we need to create. We need to hire instructional designers. Hiring for tomorrow would have been, let's hire these learning partners right now and have them kind of side hustle the instructional design. And so we can kind of align them with different parts of the business. It's just really important to kind of think about which direction you want to go as you're building a team, and understand the implications that's going to have. Are you trying to free up time now and trading it for time in the future, or vice versa?
Yeah, I love it. There's a lot of stuff I want to pull out there. I mean, the first thing is creating that business case over and over. It feels like you had to justify every dollar spent.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And it was really unique. We spent very little. We made everything. Like there's only like one or two things. I mean, like the legal stuff, we would maybe go outside, sexual harassment and that kind of stuff. But so much stuff we made internally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. With there times, and there must have been times when leaders were just like, no, this doesn't make any sense. And then did you have to go back to the drawing board? How did you win them over? Because I truly believe, and I interview guests from all over, not just learning and development, but having that business mindset of no matter what you do, it is for the business. Like, yes, we do it through developing people so that people are capable to perform and they can be high performers and the whole thing. That's our mechanism, right? But all the time having that business mindset. And I'd just love to know a little bit more about your process, or pushing back on even difficult stakeholders, or maybe they thought you were difficult. We don't need this, Matt. Seriously, we're good. So I'd love to know a little bit more about that mindset and process and how you approach it.
So one thing I would say is persistence. That always helps, and not taking a no as a no forever, but it's a no for now. And the other thing, honestly, I think that I got wrong while I was there, I wasn't as good at. I actually learned at the company I went to after SpaceX from another learning leader that I worked for. And that's the importance of saying no to a lot of stuff so that you can really deliver for key stakeholders. I think my time at SpaceX would have been even more productive had I done that, because I can think back to a couple opportunities where I was partnered with a high level person in the company, and we didn't provide them enough support, or as much support as we could have, because we were busy with all these other fires. And the next learning leader that I worked for, she was ruthless about that. She was very clear. We're leaving whole swaths. We're not able to get more headcount right now. So what that means is there's whole swaths of the business that we're just leaving out to dry. They have to fend for themselves. Sorry. And you can talk to them and you can say you're sorry, but we have to deliver these key things, because if we can't deliver these key things, then there's no hope of ever getting more headcount. I remember one time hearing a story of someone who, was like a head of payroll, who wanted to get into bigger and more ambitious things of thinking about complex ways to improve retention by varying the way we do bonuses and all this stuff. And they're given this briefing to the C-suite of all these things that they want to do. And one of the members of the C-suite just raised their hand and said, like, we're not getting our payroll done in time. Like, why am I going to think that you can do all this if we're not getting our payroll done in time? Go get the payroll done on time, then come back and we'll talk about this other stuff. And I think that's what it comes down to, is like, the language I use now is, as a leader, one of your most important roles is figuring out which fires to let burn. Right. And so especially in L&D, when we're usually under-resourced for what we think we need to be doing, it's all about saying, no, sorry, I can't. I understand your need. I think it's valuable, but based on this priority, I can't help you. I have to help these people. I wish I had done more of that when I was there, because I think it would have made us more effective.
Mm-hmm. Such a good lesson. I am highlighting that for sure. Such a good lesson. All right. So, and then you mentioned doing the instructor when you were still a pilot, and you were as a pilot instructor, led you to where you are now. So let's get there. Your business today, what made you do it? What do you do? Tell us that.
Yeah. Ultimately, I mean, I think a lot of it was, when I think back on it now, it really does come down to, in the military, in the corporate world, like, it's all these other people imposing structures on you. And time and again, I would it would lead me to these moments of kind of existential crisis. And so I had the opportunity, COVID provided the opportunity to kind of branch out, because I got some side hustle work that I did, and that kind of grew and grew. And so that's what became Better Everyday Studios. And yeah, we focus on leaders, because in my experiences, leaders are the key thing that are holding companies back. Like, time and again, all these various problems in productivity, retention, whatever it is, it just comes down to managers not being skilled enough, and specifically new frontline managers, because we very often do not give them training. And so I knew that was the problem that I wanted to solve. And then my time in the military, the reason why I say it influences it is because, I think a lot of people that come to learning and development from more of an educational lens. And so it's very knowledge focused, it's knowledge transfer focused. Whereas my time in the military, I got to see real training, what real training is, not education, and so it's very hands-on, it's very tactical, it's very behavioral. And so that's the lens through which I'm using when I'm thinking about how do I train these managers. It's, what do I want them to do differently? What are the things I need them to say? What are the actions I need them to take? That's always what we're focusing on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that mission. And honestly, it is. If we can just get that group of managers, I also, when I do training, and I've just taken a client through a specific training, and I said to them, even to the directors, the partners of the firm, I said, you're not my most important stakeholder, and they're the most senior people. And I was like, it's these people, because these people need to get it right, because they're the conduit. They're the conduit between leadership and then, making it real for everyone else. And so, it's such an important stakeholder that does, for some reason, oftentimes get overlooked. We do executive development, and coaching and all of that good stuff. And then we're doing
Yeah.
onboarding and all of that good stuff. And oftentimes it's those managers that are, I was good at being an engineer, in your case, your kind of target audience. And now I'm a leader of people, and we lose them. And then oftentimes they keep going and they still don't know how to lead people. And I've seen that so often. It's like, you are so good at your work, and especially educated people. They are so good at what they do, but not necessarily with the people side. And so, such a needed mission. But now on the flip side, I'm going to totally switch this from your mission to you. Running a business, Matt. Tell us some of the hard times, because and I'm in this sort of, I guess, this messy middle of running my own business, and I'm growing beyond my capacity, and it's hard. It is so hard. So tell us that side of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's constant lessons learned, and constantly trying to turn yourself into something that you've never been before. And so I think, figuring out what to outsource, what not to outsource. Getting a lot of people, especially in our world, that start a new business, start it because, like, have you ever read The E-Myth, like the book The E-Myth?
Mm-mm.
So
I'll link it.
It's the E-Myth for the entrepreneur myth, and it's just one simple idea in it is like, he says, like, if you really don't start a bakery because you really like baking, right? You have to start a bakery because you want to run a bakery, right? Like, there's all this other stuff, like the baking is like the side thing. And I think that's a really important lesson to think about, that I'm always thinking about, is how do I set up the business where I'm not the key component in the service delivery, right? Where I can develop services, develop products that I know I can leverage other people to do a lot of it, because that's how you grow. So thinking through that has been a big thing. And then honestly, I think for most small businesses, they just scale at the rate at which their founder can become a salesperson. And so it's doing a lot of that, of figuring out how to sell, how to find, develop a pipeline and talk to people and all that kind of stuff. The service delivery, I love it. Public speaking, leading workshops, like all that stuff. That's like, I can always get better at it, but like, I'm not worried about any of that stuff. It's all these new things that come along with running a business that are just like, ooh, what do I do here?
What did you say that really you hit me? And I thought, okay, I need to write this down and have it on a sticky note. But becoming someone you've never been before. That is just, it is so true. And truly, I speak with so many people who've sort of lost their jobs and now they want to be a consultant. And I think there's a huge difference between being a consultant or a solopreneur and actually growing and scaling a business. So, and that
they're two very different things.
You're the latter,
100%.
right? You're scaling a business. And so any good sales books or marketing books that you can recommend to, asking for a friend?
I'm trying to think. I should look. Let's see. Because I've read so many that they all just, the person that I recommend, like, not a book, but I recommend following Darren McKee on LinkedIn.
Yes, I attended his cohort, so I've been in his world for a while.
Great. Yeah. That would probably be my number one recommendation.
All right.
Looking at my bookshelf.
Sure he's going to be very happy to be mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is the hardest part. I've spent probably the best part of the last 18 months learning sales and marketing. That is all I've done, because the work, the service that I give, I'm good. Again, can always get better, but definitely learning to do things you've never done before. It's a huge piece of it.
Actually, there is one book that I just thought of that I will mention. I will mention the name Alex Hormozi, and two books. It's like $100 million offers, $100 million leads. You have to go with him, look at him, knowing his audience. And he is speaking to a very specific audience that is very much, 22-year-old males who have a very, that's tends to be like his demographic. And so that shapes, you see him on stage, he's got cut off jeans, he's got this giant beard, like that. All that being said, he is one of the best people at distilling ideas I have ever seen. And if you can take a minute to kind of see through that filter of some of the things that can be off-putting to some people, there's really good stuff in there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've listened to both of those books. And acquisition.com has all that free training. So that's,
Yep.
that is good advice.
Yep.
And I think many people listening should take that advice truly, because
Yep.
the L&D side is one thing, or your business speciality or whatever you are focused in on is one thing, but the other thing is growing that business.
Yep.
It's huge. All right. So before we wrap up and close up, what are people not speaking enough about when it comes to, and we spoke about it right in the beginning, like loving Fridays and dreading Mondays. And I honestly share that vision, that dream. I love what I do so much. I could do it all day, every day, Saturday, Sunday. I just want to do it all the time. Like, I love it. How do people get there?
The phrase that I really like to use is, you don't get credit for hitting a home run when you're playing football. I think a lot of people, me included, and this was me at SpaceX, of being I loved my time at SpaceX, but how I wanted to live my life is different than how SpaceX wants their employees to live their life. And I think that's honestly the heart of where a lot of frustration comes from, is you are working in a culture that wants you to work in a way that is not how you want to work. And I think the key phrasing that changed with me, or the key mindset that changed with me, is originally I thought that meant I should be mad at the company. The company needed to change. I'm really passionate about this mission. I should be able to work here, but they clearly don't want that, or not in that way. And it's really no. Everybody has the right to play their own game. Everybody has a right, every company has a right to decide, as long as you're not, breaking laws and abusing people and that kind of stuff. You can decide, a company can decide, this is our culture and this is that. And it's it's finding a fit for that. It's really thinking through. I spent most of my life thinking that what I valued most in life was security, because grew up in a relatively financially insecure, much better than most people, but relatively, I never fully felt secure. So I was that's my number one thing. And it wasn't until I started my own company that I had to be whoa. I was in the military, super high level, that paycheck is coming, right? And then I went and got a career at a 7,000 person company. Then I went to a 500 person company. Now I'm going out on my own. All of these decisions are completely opposite of what I think I value. Clearly, that's not what I value. And it was through that discovery that I realized, no, the number one thing I value is freedom of action. I want to be the one that sets the structure. And so I really think spending more time thinking about what you're really trying to get out of your career. And then the one other thing that I will mention, just because I need to, because it's hot on my mind, is I honestly don't think we as a society spend enough time talking about the real constraints that are imposed on us when we make different decisions about our career, right? And this is matching career and life, and whether or not what you want out of your life. Do you want a family? Do you want kids? Those things, and how those interact with career decisions, and thinking about the timeline of your life. I have gotten the privilege of working, it was funny. When I was in the military, I was the weird 30-year-old that didn't have kids. People would ask my wife and I, do you hate kids? Are you ever going to have kids? Because these were all a bunch of people who had all their kids when they were in the, 22, 23, they have 4 or 5 kids kind of thing. And then I went to LA. And at my daughter's school, we were the youngest parents by a decade, because there all of a sudden nobody's having kids until they're 40, right? And so those are both totally valid ways to structure and live a life, but they mean different things, and the earlier you can think about that and understand those implications, the better. Do you want to be do you want to be 45 sending your kids off to college, or do you want to be 45 changing diapers? Like, you could do both of those things, but like you want to think about them.
Yes, yes. That is such good advice, honestly. It's thinking, because and it ebbs and flows, right? Like,
Yeah.
you think
Yeah.
you're going to have this career, you're going to have this upward trajectory. It's just going to all be smooth sailing, but then you make these decisions which can fundamentally shift your entire life in one way
Yeah.
or another. And
Yeah.
if you're not making those intentionally, maybe you don't want that shift. So, maybe it's the best thing that ever happened to you. It could go either way, but to actually think about it, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's really great. Thank you for sharing that. All right, to wrap up, let's travel back in time again, Matt. And what would you thank your younger you for doing then that set you on this path?
I'm really happy I knew this was going to be a question, because I took a minute to think about it. And probably the number one thing, strange enough, maybe this is not what you're going for, but the number one thing I would thank my younger self for was joining the swim team my freshman year of high school. I was not a physical kid growing up. I remember a moment when I was in middle school thinking, oh, I guess I'm going to be one of those out of shape smart kids. Like, I just thought like I was going to get all straight A's and not do anything. And then freshman year, I joined swimming. And then that just sent me on a journey where I did sports all the time. And then I started running, and then I did triathlons. And the reason why I think that's so helpful is because now, as I grew up, it was very helpful that I had a foundation of fitness where it's just not a thing I have to worry about now, which I'm extremely thankful for, because it was a single decision that I made as a 14-year-old or whatever. And it just has had such profound implications where, whether through the habits and stuff that it set up, it's just one less thing that I've had to worry about as I grow up, rather than trying to bring that into my habit patterns when I'm 35 or something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely critical. I definitely started working out also young, and it just is. It's that your body that's carrying you, that's giving you all the energy so crucial. So yes, that's well done, 14-year-old you. Good decision. Good decision. Let's hope some young people listening will also make that decision for themselves, because as you get older, it gets so much harder.
It was actually great. Going back to Alex Hormozy, he was just telling a story recently that I saw, where he had somebody that worked for him who was not in the best of shape, kept thinking they wanted to do something, but whenever Alex would talk to him, he would just be like, "Oh, I'm just so busy." And he just turned to him, was just like, "Look, you're a young 20s single. Like, you're never going to have more time than you have right now. You're never going to have fewer responsibilities than you have right now. So if you're saying you can't do it right now, just say you're never going to be in shape." And that's fine. Like, you can make like, that's fine. But just accept it. And like, that was the thing that clicked in his brain. He's just like, it like hit him, just like, whoa, and like got him motivated. And so it's just like that old thing. It's like, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So I'm very happy that I planted that tree, the fitness tree, 25 years ago. But if you haven't, plant it today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Matt, how can people work with you? I mean, we'll add your links so we don't have to go there, but why should people reach out? What do you help people do?
Yeah, if you are a company where you're just not that you're just struggling with, whether it's retention, engagement, productivity, all of that stuff comes back to, do your frontline managers know how to build trust with their team, set goals for them, and give feedback? Like, those, I think, are the three foundational pillars of what it means to be a good manager. And that is what we help people with. We design customized programs to do that, so it matches your culture, your language. We take, lengths, duration of individual events, number of events, all that stuff we change depending on your needs and kind of what your culture can sustain. So if you are in a position where you're just like, yeah, we just need to upskill our new leaders, or you're getting ready to grow a lot, and so you need to hire a bunch of new leaders, then I want to talk with you.
Fantastic. All right. And so get hold of Matt in the description, of course. So thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful getting to know you better. It's been, a real treat.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for reaching out.
Thanks.